Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Holly from Home for the Healer Academy, and I wanted to quickly jump on per usual and talk to you about what to do when you're in the void and what the void means and how you can move through it easily. So let's get into it. First and foremost, what is a void? The void is when you are in this like middle period, this gap, if you will. It's kind of like you're floating in between an old version of you, an old way of thinking, an old way of doing, an old way of acting, different choices, like old choices you used to make. And also in between a new version of self that like you're aware of and that you desire to be, and that you're doing things in your everyday life and in every moment to be closer to that version, but you're still like being pulled from the past. And I think that this is a really tough place to be, because a lot of times we think, oh, we're at the end of a cycle, or we think, oh my God, this is never going to end. And I've been through this void period so many freaking times in my almost 9 years of awakening and understanding that like this life we're living is literally just a simulation. But being in this void period and knowing this stuff it doesn't make it any easier. It's still really fucking annoying and hard. And so the reason why I wanted to make this video really quickly is because I wanted to give you some tips from spirit, okay? Like, because I think that there's more information that wants to come through that's like going to be helpful for not just you, but also me. Because I was just sitting here because I currently am in this void period. In a couple videos ago, I talked about this a little bit and how the void is really like a new beginning. And I want to talk about this again, because why do we go through these moments where it's just so frustrating and you're just like, I cannot get out of it and I don't know what to do? So Spirit's like, let's talk about it. So here I am. I'm going to do like a channeled message and I'm going to get insight and clarity. One of the biggest things that I got awareness on was Spirit was telling me that I have a version of me that was a past me, okay? So let's say it was like 16-year-old me, okay? Who had learned about certain things, who had been told certain things about people and their decisions and blah, blah, blah. And because of those belief systems that I had, I placed judgments on other people who were doing those things or were different than me specifically. So I placed judgment on people because they were different than me, or they were like, I was told that it was wrong. And I now realize that a lot of the judgments that I had or that I was told was wrong back then, I am now. Meaning 16-year-old me was really strong in the church and in Christianity. And I thought that people who channeled or used tarot cards or oracle cards or like anything like that were bad, right? Like witchcraft and all of that. Like it was like this stigma of like, oh my gosh, it's bad. They're talking to demons, like this whole thing, right? So I had that belief. So that past old version of me from that old cycle, okay, that I'm ending, like I've gone through a lot of deaths and rebirths in my life, meaning old versions of me dying off, new versions of me becoming new. Now I'm a professional psychic medium. I've done thousands of readings. I teach people how to tap into spirit, how to tap into their gifts, how to connect with past loved ones. I teach about manifestation and being the creator of your reality and all of this stuff, right? And everything that I teach and do now, I used to think was wrong. And because I never fully accepted the fact that that was a program and not actually my belief, I still have that version of me that's judging me now. And a lot of you might resonate with this. Like things that you used to believe, you may now be now. Like if you used to judge people around certain things, and now you might be like, oh, holy shit, I used to judge people on that and now I do it. Shocker. That's also an indication if you're judging people, it's probably either something that's going to happen or that you do or that you're going to do or whatever, but that's for another day. But earlier today I was doing a reading and I got this message about death and rebirth and about transformation. And they as in spirit, my guides, were talking about a tree. So think about a tree, right, that has all these leaves. And then when it's fall, the tree's leaves die and they fall to the ground. And when they fall to the ground, as long as nobody comes up and rakes them, What they actually do is they disintegrate, that's not the right word, but I can't think of the word, into the ground, that then nurtures, what? Nurtures? Hold on. Nourishes the tree, the roots, right? To then get strong and stay healthy through the winter so that when spring comes around, it can create new leaves. And what they were saying with this is that a lot of times these leaves fall into the ground and these are still parts of the tree, right? But the tree's not dying because they let it go. The tree's not sad or feeling guilty or frustrated because it was let go. It's not, feeling guilty for saying, I don't want those leaves anymore and it's time for me to create new ones. It's doing what it is ultimately supposed to be doing. And it goes the same with us. We have aspects of us that literally need to die off because all they're doing is sucking things from us that we cannot give. If the tree kept dead leaves on it all the time, it would end up just dying itself because it would be trying to nurture something that's not alive. So I think the message here for me and for you guys is that we have to choose to accept the fact that there are parts of us that are not going to be with us. And there are parts of us that are continue to let go and come back as something new, right? Like when those leaves fall to the ground, they go into the earth and they nurture the roots of the tree so that it can become something new. It's not that you are killing it off. It's not that you're saying, oh, I hate that part of me, or I'm cutting that part of me off. It's that you're choosing to decide that, oh, holy shit, I have this ability to take these parts of me, to reuse them and to become something new. And a lot of us are quite literally in a season of winter. Like literally it's winter outside. And it's been cold this year. And with that, it can be really difficult because we're kind of stuck. Like we're stuck in this interesting, like staying inside, or like we can't do the things maybe we want to do, like open windows or whatever it is, right? Like winter can kind of restrict us in areas. Spring, summer, we can go out and do all this stuff. The point is that it's not about killing yourself off. It's not about shunning old versions of you. It's not about judging old versions of you or judging the fact that you're judging yourself. It's about being the observer and understanding that when you allow those dead parts of you that are just keeping you stuck, keeping you in a state of suffering, these are belief systems, these are thought patterns, these are ways of doing things that are toxic to you. When you choose to hold on to them out of fear, out of judgment, or out of, oh my gosh, what if I can't become something different? All you're doing is poisoning yourself. When you let it go and when you let it actually nourish you, when you accept what is and say, I appreciate these leaves for the season that they served me, and now I'm going to allow them to go so that I can become something new and beautiful and pretty, and eventually let that go too. You let go of the resistance to life. And when you let go of the resistance to life, everything magically transforms in front of you. When you're in resistance, you're trying to control. And when you're trying to control, you are trying to control exactly everything that's happening in front of you that literally, quite literally, you may not be able to control at all. We have control over our own thoughts and our own actions, but we do not have control over what we're seeing in our external world. At least we think we don't. When in reality, when it comes to manifestation and creation, humans create their reality based on their thoughts and beliefs and who they are. And so if we can get on board with the idea of we are choosing the reality, we are choosing ourselves, we are choosing this space by holding on to old versions, holding on to toxic beliefs, holding on to toxic, thought patterns, doubt, fear from moving forward, we're quite literally keeping ourselves from stepping into the mission that we feel called to move into. We keep ourselves in suffering. But then we blame things outside of us. Oh, God's punishing me, or I asked and I didn't get it, or I've been asking God, but I haven't seen it. Or when something does happen that you worked really hard for, you put your power outside of yourself and say, oh, God did this for me. What about you? What about you? And the reason why I'm saying this is because as much as you have the ability to bring yourself out of that and create heaven on earth, you cannot do that when you're still sitting in a place of suffering willingly. When you have the conscious understanding that this is how I am, these are the things that I do, and I do not like this part of my life because it makes me feel like shit, and you still choose to pick that suffering over choosing joy because it's easier, you have to take responsibility for that. And I'm talking to myself. My higher self is speaking through me to myself. You have to take responsibility of that. We can't be upset with the fact that life is happening in this way when we still continue the same patterns and same ways of doing things. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things that we could ever do, and that's why most people don't do it. But if you want to gain the actual happiness that you envy when you look in other people's lives, you have to find that within yourself through the way that you think, through the way that you act, through the way that you show up, and the way that you react to life. If your reaction to life is always negative and frustration and disappointment, you're gonna stay in a place of suffering. And this is something I've had to learn because most of my life I stayed in this shitty lack mindset. So I think that the message here is that to be able to move out of this void, you have to surrender to the fact that what's happening is happening for your own liberation to become something new, so that when spring rolls around, you can bloom into this beautiful version of self. And no, I don't mean literal spring. I mean whenever your cycle is done. And in the void, in the stillness, in the quiet is the discovery period of who you are and who you desire to be. And the action steps are given to you, and you have to do that. And the more that you take those steps, the more that you dramatically transform into a new version. So, I'll pass the question off to you. What aspects of your life are you still judging? And I want you to remember, if you have familiarity with Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness stands for forgiveness and compassion, right? He tells us to forgive ourselves because it breaks us from our own suffering. And when we are judging ourselves, it's because we have not yet forgiven ourselves for what we have done or what we are doing. And when you can detach from the understanding that you are a human living in a literal hell on earth, trying to figure it out without any direction or any steps, and you take away the fact that you don't have to be perfect and that all you have to do is try and face the things that you want, you will completely free yourself. Okay? So, love yourself, forgive yourself, and I love you.